Margarita Book Club. Thank you guys so much for choosing Of Gold and Dust for your book club read. That is so kind, and yeah, it's really lovely to know that she's making the rounds of the book club. So thank you for making her yours. And secondly, thank you for sending through your questions here. Sorry if I'm going to keep looking down. I've got them on my computer here. I'm just going to close this window a little bit because it's so bright. So yeah, let's get started. Number one, to get an investor or not, what would your advice be when handing over any portion of your self-made business? Feels like giving away a child. It absolutely does, and no matter whether you give away 1% or 99%, I think it will always feel like that. My advice here, and it's a question I get asked so much, and I think it's getting really clear on what it is you need in your business, whether you, what you want that individual to be. For example, like, you might say, I just need funding. Like the business is set up exactly how I want it and we're in a great place structurally, but I just need funding to move forward. So then that would be a different outreach than to say if you're looking for someone who's, really versed in numbers and finance and kind of sit on the business side of things to advise that way. Do you want someone that's working in the business every day so you're not doing it by yourself? Do you want someone that you check in once a month? So I think getting really clear on what you want from that individual as a person. What I will say, and it's going to come out a bit wrong, so let me explain it, but I think money should be the least on your list of wanting to give away a part of your business. I think, out of anything, I think money has the most options to get. I'm not saying it's easy to get, and it doesn't come with its own stresses, but there's definitely multiple channels to get money from, be it, a personal loan, a bank loan, crowdfunding. I did mine on credit card. I do not recommend that, but there's definitely, many touch points around where we can get funding from to grow our business. To me, the much more valuable thing is finding someone who is all the things that you are not. And for me, that's what I wanted. I didn't give my business partner didn't give me any money to buy into my business. As you know, because you've read the book, I pretty much had to convince him to take 30% equity. But to me, his business mind in my company was above and beyond worth that much. So I didn't want a cent from him. I just wanted his business mind in my business. So sorry, that was a very long-winded answer, but getting really clear on what you want from that individual first and foremost before you go to outreach looking for someone. Number two, what do you do when you get to the point of your small business when it's grown beyond your own abilities, but you're not making enough dollars to hire staff? What steps would you take so that you can actually employ someone without blowing the budget and eating baked beans forever? If you're not making enough money to employ staff comfortably, I wouldn't be employing staff. I would be looking at contractor roles, looking at the business that is taking up most of your time. Firstly, I'd be looking at is what you're doing in your business, what area of it has the least gross profit margin. So say you're pouring a heap of time into hand making a product, but the gross profit margin on it is really, really low. I'd be like, we're just going to sell that. We're going to make that product look like it's sold out for a while until we can catch up. And then I'd be stripping right back to basics on the products, the bread and butter products, I call them, that are high profit and that really make your company money. So that would be my first stop. And then I would be looking to contract out things like, for example, for me, a bookkeeper was not only, investing in a part-time bookkeeper in those early days. I wish I had done that so much sooner. But that's something I shouldn't have been spending my time on. And secondly, it also gave me much more transparency into financial matters in my business. So little bits that you can outsource like that without having to go and find this one individual to pay them a full-time salary, I think is the other point. But first and foremost, stopping anything in your business that is just a time consumption. Or another way that I describe it is I had this pair of earrings in my early days where I loved them. I thought they looked great in the collection. They're getting a lot of media placement, but there was no GP in them, like no gross profit in the item. So for me to spend my time, they took about 4 hours to make, and it was just a waste of my time because it wasn't making the business any money. So stripping back to basics, look at what makes you money, focusing on that and really getting that cash flow up to give you a bit more freedom to then either look to hire someone or just have options then because your cash flow is a bit healthier. I hope that helps. 3, I had to let go of PR during COVID due to the high expense and worry for the future and how to fund everything. Now I feel it's really missing from my business, but COVID still has me worried about investing back into PR. A dry bank account really doesn't help. What would your advice be if I wanted to, say, send out some more product to a celebrity or someone of good influence to give our brand that exposure it so needs? I feel any requests sent out get ignored. Firstly, I totally understand, and PR is such an intangible thing to measure, and it's always the first to go. So I totally understand why you've done that. Secondly, I also love that you say of good influence. I think that's such a beautiful way to describe influencer marketing, sending it to someone of good influence. I love that. What would I advise here? I think it's hard. It's a pay-to-play space, and depending, who you're sending it to and who you want your product to be seen with, and not knowing that, I think what I'm about to say may or may not work, but going to lower tier influencers, like micro influencers that have less followers but probably more high engagement, they're probably more likely to create content for less or for gifting. But I think what I would say if I was starting a business tomorrow with no budget for PR, I think, we're now our own publishing houses. We don't, we can reach more accounts by putting paid promotion behind our posts. So my advice would be to create really good content, 3 to 5 really good pieces of content and putting paid promotion behind it, seeing what picks up with an organic early traction, and then be like, okay, we need to blow that out a little bit more. And as shit as it is, but like the Facebook gods that be want money for us to even show our posts to our own community that we've already built, which is so shit, and that's a whole nother video in itself. But yeah, that's a big, and even for Samantha Wills Jewelry, for us, putting paid promotion behind Facebook and Instagram posts was a big traffic driver for us. So I would say take the power back and treat yourself and your brand like you are a publishing house, because you are, and own that space in reaching more people rather than relying on others to do that through influencer placement for the time being. I hope that answers the question. I do cover a lot of this in the masterclass we've just released, so and I'm not trying to sell you on the masterclass, but I do go into depth in a lot of these things and provide a lot of tools and framework and things. So if anyone is interested in doing that, these are definitely the topics that we do cover. Sometimes I feel I am spending too much on my business, but can't tell, being too deep in the business. Do you have any apps or program recommendations that could guide in what you should be spending your money on in a business and where you can stop, or a guide on whether you're overpaying on particular things and what you could do to save that money? I think I'm answering this right. Do you mean like how much wages should be, or how much rent, or how much cost of goods should be? I think that's what you're asking. That's how I'm going to answer it. I apologize if that's not what you're asking. I don't have an app or a program. I think doing due diligence around it changes industry to industry. Your wages should be, as a very general rule, 25% of your revenue. Depending on what your product gross profit is, at Samantha Wills, we're working off a 75 GP, which is quite high, which a lot of accessories are able to do. But definitely keeping that above the 50 GP. But no, it would come down, if you're talking about like supplies, like the packaging you buy, or your shipping rates and things like that, that definitely comes down to having to do due diligence and doing price comparisons. What I would say though, overarchingly, and to all of these questions, and I think to any creative entrepreneur, is putting it out to your communities, and finding a community or communities of like-minded people. I think so often in this day and age we're so concerned to show up imperfect. I think due to the digital age, there's just so much perceived perfection that it can really keep us in quicksand to show up imperfectly, and that includes questions about our business. But I think when we put it out there, like if you were to put out, hey, I'm looking for an investor, or I'm looking for a business partner, here's the type of profile I'm looking for, I know that it just has this update. It's so, what's the word? Uncomfortable to put it out there, but people want to help. Like if you're like, hey, I'm paying too much for X, Y, and Z, can anyone give me a guideline? Is this right? Like people will reply. So I think just overarching, I really encourage you to be really vulnerable with your small business communities and put these questions and similar out to them as well, because I think that's where people are like, oh, hey, I know this person, or I have a vendor that can do that, you know, cheaper, and people want to refer. They truly do want to help. So yeah, I think that's all the questions. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I hope they helped. You guys are awesome, and thank you again for choosing Of Golden Dust. It truly does mean the world, and thank you for taking the time to send these questions through and for trusting me to answer them for you. And yeah, I hope you guys are doing okay in this time. I'm sending you a huge amount of love, and I hope to speak to you soon. Mwah.